We're going to break now. Lee?
It is a pleasure to extend cordial greetings to the Knights of Columbus. Who is not aware of your outstanding history of charitable endeavors carried out in fruitful and fraternal collaboration? I wish to encourage you to remain steadfast in your love for Christ and in your many deserving efforts to defend and promote his saving message. Continue to stand up for the dignity and value of all human life, especially that of the unborn, the elderly, and the handicapped. Persevere in your support for the Christian family and for institutions of Catholic education. May the Knights of Columbus always be known for their earnest and persevering prayer. This is my hope for you and your families and for all those who are dear to you. May God bless you all.
It is hard to pick up a magazine or newspaper that doesn't mention choice in education. President Bush and the governors have made it a goal for the year 2000. Getting down to basics, just what is the choice movement and what does it mean for Mr. and Mrs. America?
Well, Charlie, basically what it's about is that the state should continue to insist that every child has a right to a good education, and it's a duty of every citizen to contribute to the support of that education. I don't think there's any disagreement there. No one wants to upset that because that's the basis of what we run our system on. What we're saying, the choice folks, is that the people most directly involved in education are the parents and the teachers. They're the ones who should control what goes on in the schools. We shouldn't have experts in Upper Marlboro, Annapolis, Baltimore, or Washington, D.C. determining what's best for every child in the state of Maryland.
Right.
So what we're saying is give the parents the right to choose the kind of school. The teachers then will respond and offer the kind of teaching the philosophy that the parents want, and then people will be happy. They'll love the schools then. I mean, every child will basically be involved in that kind of environment that his parents think is appropriate for that child. The teacher will be happy because they're now free to teach the way they know best. They don't have to follow what the state tells them to do. So we just think it's the way we have to go. This is the way that freedom works. So it's what we're looking for. And as Secretary of Education Lamar Alexander made this statement, he said, where on earth did we get off base and fix in law that parents can't choose the kind of school they want for the child? I mean, really, why is this in a free society that you as a parent can't determine where your child goes to school?
Yeah, that shouldn't be.
Right. Well, that's what we're working on.
Why is this movement so important at this time?
Well, you know, you could pick up every magazine or look at television. You just know there's real problems in our society, and many people feel they're insoluble. So what we're saying is that we've always had problems, but we're coming to the conclusion that perhaps we're missing something, and that something goes back to the most important basic industry in our society. If you figure there's 44 million kids in the schools, and roughly 2 parents a child is another 80 million, you're up to 120 million people, you put in the teachers, the textbooks, and all the other people that are involved in education, you're talking over well over half the people in the United States are involved in education every day of the year practically. So it's the biggest thing we have going, and it's where we've chosen to pass on those values we feel are important to our children so they'll blend in society. Now we feel if there's a stranglehold on this passing on of values, which the public schools represent really right now, and I'm not saying these are bad people, I'm just saying it's the way the system has worked out because trying to be neutral, that the kids are not able to know what America really stands for. They're not getting exposed to those values and virtues that we feel are very important. So I don't blame the kids at all today for what they're doing. They're doing what results from the lack of adults having firm values in their own makeup. And we're not passing it on to the children.
What about the separation of church and state?
Well, now that is not a problem, because in late 70s, in Minnesota, the state of Minnesota passed a law giving financial aid to every student.
Right.
So the Minnesota Supreme Court said, well, if it's available to every student, whether they go to a state-run or a non-state-run school, why, it does not violate any separation of church and state. And this was then confirmed by the U.S. Supreme Court. It's Mueller versus Allen. We feel it's one of the landmark decisions, because now what the courts are saying, if you can come up with a system that is fair to everybody, it's not favoring anybody, any religion or unreligion, why, then it's fair for everybody.
I see. You know, I think some people feel that you want to destroy an institution that has served the country so well, and that's the public schools.
Well, you know, I have a little problem with that. I wonder what they're talking about. I just don't believe that all the public schools are bad. In other words, if it's on a level playing field, why couldn't they compete with any other school? Of course, the question comes up, if they're not doing a good job, how do we get them to do better? And that's what we're saying, that by having to worry about how many students are going to come to that school, they're going to start saying, well, what do those parents really want in the way of methodology in the school and philosophy in that school? So they're going to start having to answer to those people who are most involved, the parents and the students. So I don't think this will hurt the public schools. The ones that are going to hurt are those schools that aren't doing a good job. And I think every American says, well, why should we have a school that's not doing a good job in the first place? And why should it be propped up by a system? So is our allegiance to the system, or is it to the education of the children?
That's a very good question. You know, I believe that most Americans feel that the public schools are what hold this country together as a melting pot of shared experience. What do you think about that?
Well, you know, back in the days when we had a nation of small towns, particularly moving west, you did have one school. Every town that was formed had a plot of ground where they built a school, and every child in that town would go to school. Well, you did have the rich, the poor, and the baker, and the lawyer, and the bank president. Everybody, their children went to the same school. Well, that isn't true in America today. We've changed so drastically. If you go out to Potomac, Maryland, McLean, Virginia, Grosse Pointe, Michigan, Shaker Heights in Cleveland, or Beverly Hills in California, you'll find some very, very expensive public schools. And guess who gets to go to those? Only wealthy people, because you have to live in the neighborhood to go to that school. Now, who goes to the poor schools? Well, you find them in Anacostia, Beverly Hills, inner city New York, Harlem, Chicago, all over the place. Now, these are the kids that are getting hurt, because the wealthy parents, obviously, if they don't like what's going on in their school, they have enough money, they can either move or send their child to another school and pay whatever it costs. It's the poor people, the middle class and the poor people, who have absolutely no choice. They're stuck. And particularly if they don't like what the public schools offer, they may not even like what the only other non-public school in town may be, a Catholic school. So where do they go? They're really stuck. So what we have is a bunch of kids who are basically, you might even say, they're slaves to the system. They can't get out of it. Right. If they're going to get a non-religious or anti-religious education experience, their parents have no power to exercise any control.
Won't the choice movement, as in vouchers, benefit the rich and hurt the poor?
Well, it's the same thing. How do you help a rich man who makes $200,000 or $300,000 a year by giving him a voucher? He's got the choice already. It's the poor people that don't have the choice. Yeah. I think just the opposite can be said. The rich are probably the ones who least want this movement to succeed, because then maybe a child from Anacostia might find his way out to a school in McLean or Potomac. And I think these people have a great deal of elitism in their nature right now. They want to keep what they have. Right. So they have control, they have power right now. What we're saying is, let's empower everyone, so make it an equal playing field.